What's up, guys? It's your boy Rich here. So what do you get from three guys on a boat? You get the cheapest, most expensive watches in the world. Let's go take a look at Christopher Ward's C60 Trident GMT. Let's go. And here it is in 42 millimeters, 49.3 from lug to lug, 13.8 millimeters tall, and with a 22 millimeter lug width. And I'm really excited to get my hands on this watch. For a really long time, Christopher Ward has caught my attention. And I think Christopher Ward as a brand is in a very unique position. I think as a brand, it is fair to say that a lot of us are familiar with it. So for example, if someone is wearing this watch and another person asks what kind of watch that is after learning that it is a Christopher Ward, I think the likely response would be, oh yeah, I've heard of that brand. But within that same context, I don't think their models quite roll off our tongue as organically as, say, a Rolex Submariner or a Steinhardt Ocean or an Omega Speedmaster, because those specific models are so closely associated with those brands. And in the case of Christopher Ward, in my opinion, their two flagships, or the two models that are best associated with Christopher Ward, would have to be their Malvern and this Trident. Though I would say that they have quite a few very interesting models, for example, also with their new Moonglow, but that would have to be for a separate video. A lot of divers today market themselves as being influenced with from vintage divers of the past, and there isn't anything wrong with that. In fact, I like a lot of the vintage looking divers of today. But in the case of Christopher Ward, they seem to have set their own direction, because there isn't anything vintagey about this, nor do they market it as such. This is a very modern looking divers, and I quite like it a lot. So one of the first areas that, of the case at least, that caught my attention is the attention to detail on the side profile here. This is a very sleek looking side case right here. It's just really nice, nicely angular, very soft looking. And in the center here, it is done in a nice brushed finishing. And then all around it is a really nice polished finishing, and not just a thin accent. It takes up quite a bit of real estate that extends to the front of the case or the lug area. It's actually also nicely beveled here. Just a really nice polished finishing that frames the center brushed finishing really nicely. And before I started to read up on the Trident, I had no idea that they actually had a name for this, which is the light catcher, because of the contrasting finishes and the way that it plays with the light. And on the other side, the same thing. And then it has very modern looking crown guards right there. Again, not the vintage or the common looking crown guards. And the crown is nicely signed. So let's talk about this dial, because in my opinion, it is a very attractive dial. And my version is in blue, but it's also available in black and red and black. And on the red and black, it is the bezel inlay that is red, with the dial being black. So what is the first, I guess, area of attention that you see with the dial? Because what I see, and that first caught my attention, is their branding, which is at 9 o'clock. Typically, the branding would be at right under 12 o'clock. And if you think that it is blank under 12 o'clock, we would be mistaken, because there is a very subtle logo right there instead of the full Christopher Ward branding. There it is. Very subtle, but I quite like it. So I think Christopher Ward was very clever with the branding at 9 o'clock. And the reason that I feel that way is it makes this watch really identifiable as a Christopher Ward. Every time I see someone wearing a Christopher Ward, I immediately am able to tell that, because I see the branding at 9 o'clock. Even though I might be at a distance and I can't make out Christopher Ward, when I see it there, I know that's a Christopher Ward. So I think that is a very clever way for Christopher Ward to make their watches easily recognizable or identifiable without having to be really close up to the watch. The indices are nicely applied. It says automatic GMT, and this model is water resistant to 2,000 feet or 600 meters. The GMT hour hand is right here in orange, which I really like. I like that contrasting color of orange, which also matches the text right underneath automatic GMT. So let's figure out how this GMT function works. Unscrew the crown. And then as we change the date in one direction, You can see it changing right there, 4th, 5th, 6th. And then as we rotate the crown in the opposite direction, we'll see the orange GMT or second time zone hand changing. There it goes, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11, 12. And also, as importantly, we'll notice as I'm adjusting the second time zone, it is not affecting the main time zone. As you can see, the second hand is still sweeping away, doing its thing. So a nice job by Christopher Ward using the GMT function. In case it isn't obvious, the bezel inlay is ceramic, and Christopher Ward did a really nice job at creating that liquid-like ceramic finishing, just a really attractive bezel insert. So while we're talking about the bezel, let's check out its turn action. Here we go. Nice and audible. Very little backplay, the proportionate amount for how loud the clicks are. So the bracelet is done entirely in a brushed finishing. There is their logo on the clasp. And after we open the clasp, we will see additional branding of Christopher Ward right here on the inner portion of the clasp. And it does have micro adjustments. So right here, on the inside of the micro adjustment area, we can also see how nicely finished it is. It is not left raw. I don't have any nails right now, but all we have to do is simply push this lever up, and right there we can see the 3 slots for the micro adjustments. We have 3 micro adjustments right there, so we can get ideal fit. Christopher Ward did a really outstanding job with the attention to details. They did not cut any corners. This is a lot of quality details to a really, I'm just really impressed by the Trident 3. So while I just sang the praises of the Trident GMT, there's one area that is worth noting. On their website, the time discrepancy or the accuracy is described as minus 20 seconds to plus 20 seconds a day, which is pretty much average. To put that into perspective, a COSC certified watch's accuracy is minus 4 seconds to plus 6 seconds a day. In my test on my model, I've been getting plus 11 seconds a day, which is quite a bit of a difference from their own website. So it is worth noting because I'm not sure if it is a typo or an error on their website, but the actual testing results came in at plus 11 seconds a day. There is a lot to like about the Trident GMT. There's a lot to like about Christopher Ward as a company. So we've been seeing the Christopher Ward name throughout the dial a lot, but who is Christopher Ward? Is there a Christopher Ward? Well, let's hear and meet the principals from the company. And yes, there is a Chris Ward.
In our chicken shed in Cookham Dean, lovely view of Winter Hill, we hatched the plan to take on the Swiss by offering something nobody had done before, which was a fair price in our mind's eye for truly high quality watches.
The simple aim was to make the cheapest, most expensive watches in the world.
I think everybody's fascinated about people trying to sell watches on the internet. So the internet gave us the opportunity to access the world.
Well, we can run the tools.
I mean, everybody was using the same stuff.
Yeah.
Why are they charging up to 34 times the cost price, which seemed to us northern lads a little excess. It's outrageous. It was outrageous.
Immoral in many ways.
Here we are looking at a nicely screwed on solid case back with their cool Trident logo, tastefully done in a frosted and polished finishing, and they have a unique serial number that is on the case back here. I believe mine is 209. One other thing that I wanted to show you was their quick release bracelet system right here. So no tools are required. We just simply pull out the lever and change it out if you want to put a rubber strap on this one day. And this is not that common to have a quick release for a bracelet. Typically that is done or reserved for leather straps or rubber straps. And I think one of the other brands that use this that comes to mind is Melbourne watch company Sorrento. So this is another nice touch by Christopher Ward. So what is the movement that is powering the GMT Trident? Well, it uses the ETA 2893 with 42 hours of power reserve. And the retail price of this model is $1,135. And for that, we are getting a really nicely made Swiss-made watch by a London-based company that is Christopher Ward. They certainly did not cut any corners with the design of this watch. They paid a lot of attention to detail. They were giving us a really well-crafted, well-executed, really nicely thought out, very modern diver's watch. This is in 42 millimeters, like I mentioned at the top of the video, but they also have this available in 38 millimeters. And that version in 38 millimeters is only 45 millimeters from lug to lug. So for those of us who are a little uncertain about a 42 millimeter watch, we do have that option in 38 millimeters. Let's wrap this up with some final thoughts on Christopher Ward, starting with their history. They are not a brand new company. They've been around since 2004, so they are firmly established, and in fact they make some in-house movements for some of their models. You know, I would liken Christopher Ward to another well-known British watch company, and that is Bremont. Though Bremont makes their watches in London and are London-based versus Christopher Ward, which are Swiss-made watches, but they are London-based. And I would also compare the quality to both brands as comparable. Comparable? Comparable. Let's go with comparable, because the quality level is there. But clearly the difference between Christopher Ward and Bremont is in their prices. Christopher Ward is a value-conscious brand without sacrificing the quality. And one of the things I appreciated with the Trident is their two sizes in 38 and 42, because that tells us they recognize that we are not a one-size-fits-all watch world. But the biggest takeaway for me is after experiencing the Trident in person is that pictures don't do this watch enough favors compared to seeing this watch in person, because it is a very impressive watch in person. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you the next time. So let's go take a look at Christopher Ward. Yeah. This is in 38 millimeters, but it's also available in 40. No, this is the 42 millimeter version. Good job, Rich. What's up, guys? It's your boy Christopher Ward. No, I'm not Christopher Ward, but I am your boy Rich.